Hi, friends. It's Sarah May, and this is an episode I am calling Feeling Maxed Out. So, this is for inviting you to step back and recalibrate. And I think of, I like to think of our emotional selves, or I guess our being as kind of having this pot, this cauldron, like Renaissance times cauldron that's sitting in the back of our throat or in the back of our person, and we can put stuff in it and put the lid back on, and we put more in it, we put the lid back on, we stuff things away, put the lid back on, especially when we're going at full speed. Put something in, put the lid back on, and at a certain point it's just full and it's boiling, and so your feelings are kind of just like bubbling right here at the surface, at the very top of your throat. And that is when we get to that stage where we're really reactive and explosive, and like things set us off. It's like an inner sense of chaos. And I think when we get to that place, it's like we're going a million miles an hour, we're managing, and we're getting more and more things put on our plate. And so if that feels like you, if you feel like your pot is full, this is for kind of, I would call it calming our perspective, a focus cleansing kind of episode. It's not about dismantling what is working. If you are currently like a high functioning person who is just getting shit done and like going through the motions successfully, this is really just for creating some air. So, wiggle room. And with that, I think it's kind of like a trajectory shifting tweak, because right now it's kind of like we're running ourselves gradually into the ground. And that is kind of a stage when more things are catalyzed that are negative, like negative decisions, negative reactions, negative interpersonal situations. So this is like a slight trajectory shift toward lightness. It's a step back to fill the reservoir, so to speak. So these are really small steps. And when we can reduce that noise and calm our perspective, I think that we can tip the balance toward, I know how to titrate this poison. I know how to calm my body. I know how to regulate my body. I know how to just adjust so that the overall ratio is regenerative versus right now we're getting depleted. And so I think when we get in that depleted stage, it's really easy to just go very black and white, go very dark. And we start to have a negative perspective. We start to have negative feelings toward other people. And that's because we have just nothing left to give. It's a not you set of perspectives. So, with that, I invite you to relax and take what helps from this episode, leave the rest. There are three parts: the what, the why, and the how, the tools. Part one, the what. Short fuse, low threshold. Maybe you are finding yourself uh, disappointed often. You're breaking, you're having outbursts, you are unable to hold things back, you are feeling hopeless, maybe a sense of dread. I would call it like a pre-panic attack kind of set of feelings. It's like this is kind of a check engine light for our person. If you are not sure what is wrong, but you have a pervasive sense of overwhelm, feeling like everything is wrong, and a short fuse, I would say that that's the blinking light on the dash. This is like inner chaos. And I think the most significant thing you can call out when you have that feeling is lack of meaning and a dark tunnel perspective. Like everything feels like imminently hopeless. Like, oh my God, I'm going to do this forever and this is never going to get better. Like, if you have thoughts like that, this is just being burnt out. And it can be relieved with some loving kindness and attention. So, that is like first things first. Our goal is to invite more gentle, loving kindness and less black and white thinking, really leaning into the gray and the nuance. And like when we have severe thoughts, the first thing we need to say to ourselves is, maybe that's not true. Maybe it's not. Is that the way it is for real, or is it less bad than that? I hope that makes sense. Part two, the why. When we are exploding at others, we are literally venting the cauldron, that giant black pot. The metaphor is the pot is full. And I think in general, when we are in that stage of like things are just exploding from the wrong place, that is because quite literally, like the emotion is full and we need to have the space to process it, confront it, feel it, allow it to dissipate, allow it to be seen. And if you have ever been in therapy or you have studied psychology, there's this term of triangulation. Family systems theory is like we're venting things all the time through other people in our family. So this is a great metaphor to use right now, because if you are feeling lots and lots of overwhelm and stress from other places, that pressure, that steam has to be released in any convenient way possible. So you might find that you're snapping at people at work or you're yelling at your partner. That is just like a pressure cooker venting steam. Psst, psst, psst. You're like pushing a button to allow this thing to be vented in some way. And so if we continue to stuff things in again and again, it's going to explode in other ways. Or we're going to find that we're acting out at ourselves in some shape or form. Another thing that happens when we are managing extra emotion is we are drawing so much more energy. If you are suppressing feelings that are counter to how you feel in your day-to-day life, like for example, let's say you're very angry, you're very stressed out at like all of the stuff you have to manage, the lack of balance in your life, to regulate that and push that away and act happy, like act in a way that's different to how you feel, the amount of energy drain that creates on your blood glucose is exponential. So you're going to have way less capacity to do things that require discipline. Like, for example, abstaining from sugary foods and greasy foods and alcohol. Like your body is trying to regenerate its levels in any way possible. You're grasping at things to like give yourself relief from the lack of blood glucose. This is the same reason that people always say don't get your court case heard on a Friday afternoon, because the amount of drain that judge has had throughout the week is going to cause them to have very limited capacity to have patience, tolerance, compassion, all of the things. So they're just going to take the easiest possible route at that time at the end of the week. Same thing goes for you. If you're managing emotions that are powerful, there are many experiments that show people that they had people like pretend to be sad or pretend to be happy while they watch sad movies. The end of that experiment, they're tasked with doing something that requires focus. Those people give up much more quickly because of the endurance of trying to act differently than they feel. So if you are in this stage, know that your blood glucose is already low, and now is a time to be as gentle as you can and not ask more of yourself in terms of the stress that you have to endure or the self-control that you have to muster. So also to be aware of, right now, your brain, because it is very black and white and because it is very, let's call it infantile, be careful with social media, because right now, like whatever your brain is on, period, is going to be exacerbated by social media. So if your brain is on infantile feelings of low self-worth or fear or worry, whatever it is, your current focus is going to get a major dose of that when you enter into the world of social media, because it's going to serve up to you whatever you are seeking or whatever you are currently seeing already. Whatever your belief system is leaning toward, it's going to be exacerbated. Okay, that is my why. And now I'm going to go into part 3, the how, the tools. But before I do that, first, a brief word from our sponsors. Okay, the how, the tools. Today, I wanted to take what I would call I'm going to call it a stillness cleanse day. And where we're really just taking as many opportunities throughout the day to give ourselves a moment of becoming the silent witness in the darkness that is the back of our eyelids. So what does that mean? Just if you close your eyes, if it's safe to close your eyes, there will be kind of the space in between your thoughts, in between the little tangents where you're just watching. You're just watching the thoughts, or you're watching the color and the texture that is behind your eyelids. And what I want to invite you to do throughout your day, as often as possible, is just close your eyes, listen to the sound of your breath. This is like 15 seconds. I'm asking you to do this. And then just get into a full and complete moment of being that silent witness. And when we are just for a brief moment in that quiet, this is just like, I want you to picture it as like it's cleansing your system. It's causing your nervous system to calm down slightly. So just doing this throughout the day consciously is just teaching yourself to like be outside of this chaos of overwhelm, of stress. And really, like, the more we can kind of shower ourselves in this way, like cold showers of stillness, the more balanced we can become, like including just sitting outside, being in the sun, and just staring at nature and really focusing on the texture of the breeze on your skin, things like that. So that's the first pervasive assignment I have for you. All right. First tool is called the Crowbar. So I want you to think of yourself as mentally having a crowbar where you are able to pry from your eyeballs, from your face, an identification with whatever your fear stress modality is at any given time. Like when we are having a response to something in our life, we're having a sense of panic, we're having a sense of struggle, resistance, pain, anger at what is. I want you to just remember that we can step outside of that and see that as a physical process that is happening that we don't have to identify with. I would say that specific process of learning to see the side profile of this thing happening to us is like a monumental piece of personal growth, of growth in general, of growing into a more capable, mature person. All of managing stress and dealing with stress and processing stress and pain and overwhelm, I think of as a constant reorientation toward I'm at the wheel and I'm slowing down the engine and I'm steering straight. It's like for us to really identify with I am at the wheel of my person. That's really just like a little tweak. I'm not underwater. I'm on top of the water and I'm steering the boat. It's just like a frame of mind. And so when we have, let's say, a fear worry response to something like change, like something big is going to change and it's really causing us to feel overwhelmed. Or maybe it's the opposite. Something is not going to change and we're feeling intense panic and overwhelm. Or we're losing something that we are used to and we're having an intense response to that. There's a part of us that can step outside of whatever thought blip is happening and see that response in itself as its own little like ecosystem. It's a superficial blip of energy that's happening in us, but it is not us. So I'm going to put a link to a book called The New Earth. You may have heard of it, Eckhart Tolle. Anyway, I think this is a really good reminder for this. That book is a really good reminder for this in particular. But like in that moment of like, I'm feeling really fucking overwhelmed and I'm freaking the fuck out. Just to be able to see that as like, oh, this is a thing happening in my body right now. I can look at it as separate from myself and go through the motions of I'm going to calm my physical being. I'm going to sip cold water. I'm going to take a hot bath, like whatever it is we need to do to like just give ourselves the tiniest bit of edge over that process. All right. The next tool is a mantra. This is for my codependents out there. It's okay for people to be mad at you. I think one thing that happens that causes an intense amount of stress for a lot of people is worry over how somebody else is feeling and worry over doing something wrong. Like, I fucked this up. It's that bad kid identity from like the controller identity, basically from childhood. So when you are very overwhelmed, one thing we're doing is we are fighting with powerlessness. We are fighting with, we're desperately trying to control everything. And in that process of trying to control everything, we are ruminating massively. So know that when you're in a reduced operating capacity that comes with being depleted, we are extra intense controllers. And so if you are a person that identifies as such, you will feel intense stress and anxiety, especially around disappointing other people and not being able to control the feelings of other people. It's like you're going to experience their feelings on an even more heightened level than you normally do because of the fact that you're physically and emotionally depleted. So you might be practicing an intense amount of rumination right now and like flailing even more than you normally do. So in the face of that, I just want you to become aware of it. And what I'm going to close this episode with, and what I want you to try and do throughout your day, is just practice welcoming that state of lack of control. Acknowledge that you're flailing, acknowledge that fear and that paralysis, and just welcome it at the table in your body. I am feeling this thing, and that's okay. These people, whoever it is mad at me, and that's okay. I'm welcoming that into my system. I'm allowing it to move through my person and really deliberately create a sense of physical safety in your body. Like really relax into your belly, your shoulders, your chest, and just practice feeling safe in the face of that truth. All right. The next tool is called, is it all bad? Or is it just the feeling I have right now? I wanted to take an inventory of what is causing you to feel super overwhelmed in your life. And I think it's like oftentimes the pot becomes full and all of the ingredients are just very ordinary and small things. But because of our lack of energy, we have less coping mechanisms. And also, they're just stacked on top of each other. And so we experience it as so much worse than it actually is. So I wanted to invite you to actually just take an inventory. I invite you to do this with your phone because I think it's just the easiest thing to like reference, but you don't have to do it with your phone. You can do it with your journal. Let's take an inventory and just see how life was 1 week ago today. Did you experience lightness and joy? I mean, literally look back at either photos, your calendar, maybe your journal, what you wrote to yourself, and just take an inventory and see, am I doing okay? Is my perspective in my head accurate, or am I creating more of this than is true? Like, is everything really that bad, or am I creating a lot of the pain for myself? All right. The next tool, weird name. Ignore this if it is triggering in any way. This tool is called the stoner moments. Another name for it, moments of clarity. So I think of having these like kind of blips of like when you're really tired at night, when your brain's not looking. We get these little moments of clarity when we feel lucid and kind of, I guess, like half looking. That's the best way I can describe it. But we have these moments where we can see, in contrast to our present day brain that is like the controller that's super on, some truth that we were not aware of before. Like, for example, this is the exercise, another phone-based one, but also going to be your journal. I want you to look at your phone photos a year ago or your journal 1 year ago and see what you were doing right. What kind of clarity can you gather from an examination of that self? What was working for you then? What have you lost since then? What is the kind of sum of who you were at that point in time? And I have a couple of prompts for you to answer. You can also just reflect on them in your mind. And you might find the opposite in this exercise. The goal of it was really to just gather some learning about maybe where you have created an unnecessary stress in your life, or where you can relax or return to something that was working in the past If it does the opposite for you, skip this tool. But here are a couple of prompts. What do I see about my life now when I revisit 1 year ago? What was I doing right? What have I changed for the better? What have I sacrificed that I wish to restore? What's one change I would like to invite? And that's it. All right. The next tool is also, I would call it a fun journal exercise, but I think one thing that happens when we're in this state of mind is we just throw everything out with, we throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're just like, everything's fucked. This doesn't work. Everything's to shit. We get like really, really judgmental, and at ourselves especially, but at everything in our lives and everything that we are doing and everything that exists. So this tool is called the winning list. I want you to just take stock of all that you are currently winning at. Life is so hard. It is so hard, and it can be a lot. So just to manage and achieve like basic human standards of living it's like a monumental success. And I just want you to remember that and not take that for granted. Really see your successes. So I invite you to write a list in your journal or your phone. What am I winning at in my life right now? You only see what you're so good at when everything explodes or when you lose it. But I can tell you right now, you're doing a lot right. So just like take a moment and like acknowledge that. What am I doing every day that is leading to my success? What am I doing every day that is making me healthy and have income? What am I doing? What did I change in my life recently that was really difficult and I should feel appreciation for myself? What am I doing that is actually really, really hard to do or is really hard to access? What are all those things? All right, the next tool, big kid pants. I think one thing that happens when we are short fused and when we react really in a low way, like we start to just become children. We become really tiny children. And so one thing I wanted to invite you to do, if this helps, if it doesn't, if it makes you feel stressed, ignore it. I wanted to invite you to, instead of reacting to someone not doing what you want them to do, or I feel like my responses are always like, but I'm suffering more. But why aren't you taking care of me? Like I become a little baby in some reactive ways, especially if someone is like in a bad mood. Instead, ask why. Instead of immediately taking it personally and feeling like, but I'm in more pain, but I'm the one that's doing all the work, instead of responding to however they're feeling, ask, why would they be feeling that way? Oh, it's because of all of their other problems and lack of functioning, or it's because of all of the pain that they're going through in this area of their life. It's usually got nothing to do with you. It's a default, probably for anybody in your life. It probably has nothing to do with you. It probably has to do with mental health, probably has to do with whatever other stress that's being lumped onto them from whoever fill in the blank in their life. All right, the next tool. I hate this, but I think one thing that can cause us a lot of pain in our lives is we feel like we are not acting on something that we really want to change, and we get mad at ourselves. Like you have some situation in your life and I'm like, but why am I not fixing it? Why am I still suffering in this same way? Or why is this problem not being changed? Why am I incapable of fixing a thing? And the answer to that question is there is some other motivation that's coming from a much older part of yourself, and a part of yourself that perhaps is not as emotionally prevalent or talkative in your brain. So a lot of your energy can be drawn by just battling with that fact and being mad at ourselves for the truth that is, I have different values than I'm willing to admit to myself. Like your values may surprise you when it comes to the truth of what you want. And I think a lot of the time, what we really need to do in the face of suffering, let's say, and I'm talking about suffering that's caused by like, I'm in a bad relationship, I'm in a bad job, I'm accepting less than behavior, I am doing something that I don't agree with on an ethical level. I am acting like a person that I'm not proud of. Whatever that thing is, we are choosing it with our actions. If we are not changing it, our actions will tell us exactly what we are choosing. And that can be very conflicting. It can make us kind of bummed out about ourselves and what we have chosen. So if that is true for you, I think a lot of what gives us immense relief is just processing that and confronting it and allowing ourselves to be witnessed in the pain we feel around that truth. It is what it is. The truth of how you feel is the truth of how you feel. If we're not ready to act, we are not ready to act. If we can just be witnessed in our pain, that can bring an immense amount of relief. But to be angry at the truth is to draw unnecessary pain and energy away from ourselves. So if you are finding that you are like masturbating is my term for it, you are selfishly indulging in negative rumination about yourself, that is in itself the problem that needs to be fixed. The rumination and the focus on, I am mad at the truth of how I feel. That is completely optional as a process. Hope that made sense. Next one is called take it off the burner. When something is drawing energy from us, like worry around something, or thinking about something we have to confront, a relationship issue, whatever it is, right now is not the time to deal with it. Just know that it's like, yes, you will deal with it, but not right now. If you are maxed out, take that thing off the burner. Can you just put this aside for now? Does this need your immediate attention right now, or can it wait? If we are to confront things that are big and heavy, waves are created and more conflict is created that you cannot handle responsibly at this point in your life. So if there are things that like, yes, need to be addressed, but they take a lot of extra high energy exertion from you, just for now, put them aside and take them off the burner that is your brain and your ruminating whatever time. This is just, you're taking this assignment off for right now. All right. The next tool is called Let's Float. I want you to imagine that we are like standing in the, right around where the waves come in the ocean. And instead of trying to fight them, we're just going to float on them. They're lifting you up and you're allowing your body to be pushed in them, and just relax into that feeling. Whenever you're in the moment of resistance, you're in that moment of flailing, of panic, of like, I can't, but I can't. And I need to control all these things. I need to make all these people do these things. And I need to keep to this schedule, whatever it is. Just feel into the waves pushing your body and relax. Just relax into that rigidity, It's okay. No one's going to die. And really accept. It's about welcoming powerlessness, I think. When we are anxious and worrying, it's really a resistance to, I can't control the world. It's a resistance to accepting I can't control the world. And so in the moment of that, I think the best thing to do is like, no one's going to die. It's not the end of the world. Just process the truth of, I can't control everything. And really, I think a lot of that comes when we are resisting feeling big emotions. Like we don't want to feel big emotional responses. Know that like when we stop resisting them, they're not going to kill us. We can just sit with ourselves and allow all of those feelings to flood in and just, they pass through our body and then they're gone. So just as they move through your body, allow yourself to just let them flood over you. Let them just, and if you need to, fall apart. If you need to fall apart, that's okay. and then you pick yourself up again and move on. Those are my tools. Before I close, I want to thank my latest sponsors, Gordon. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all the donations. Anyone who has the means, donations really help out this show. If you don't have the means, totally understand. If you could share it with someone who could help, that helps me as well. So in closing, I just wanted to practice and inhabit a sense of safety. Like I wanted you to relax your shoulders and your belly and just feel into what that looks like for you in particular. Like, what does safety look like in your body? Can we relax the belly, let the gut hang out? Can you relax your throat? Can you relax your shoulders, your chest? Really physically tune into a feeling of safety and serenity. I am safe. I am cared for. Everything is okay. And take breaks throughout the day. Just little moments allow us to, as I said, titrate that feeling of overwhelm. So I hope this helps you. I send you my love. And don't forget to smile.